I'm super excited to have you join me, and today we're going to talk about flexing success, powerlifting, your business with mental and physical fitness. Okay, before we get started, I'm just curious by show of hand, how many of you are maybe into fitness? Good. Wellness? Good. What about hiking and climbing? Okay. All right. CrossFit? All right, good. All right. Because I was going to use a few different metaphors throughout my talk, and it's going to go between climbing metaphors to bodybuilding metaphors to fitness metaphors. And I want to make sure that it kind of like it hits home. So since we have a mixed bag, I think that's going to be great. So now, as our opening scene, imagining that you're standing atop this summit, and it's may that be maybe this little mountain that you just climbed, or maybe it's a business success that you just had, or maybe it's some type of a competition that you've been part of, and you bagged it. And I don't know if you had that feeling before, but it feels amazing. Like that accomplishment of like putting in the work and have that work pay off is the best feeling in the world. So that's where we're trying to get to. But before we even get there, probably many of you would be like, well, I'm not anywhere close to that. I'm actually sitting at the bottom of this mountain. If you're there, like, you wouldn't be just waltzing to the mountain in your flip-flops thinking that you're gonna scale it, right? Or you wouldn't just wake up one morning and say, oh, today I'm gonna climb Everest. You would first want to have some type of a game plan, a dream team, and also the right mindset. And that's what I want to tackle today, where if you're planning to scale a peak, may that be business wise, building something new, may that be an amazing event that you're working on, you have the right tools to do that. And we're going to do this as a parallel between the fitness journey, the climbing journey of a mountaineer, because there's so many parallels to be drawn from each one of those experiences. And so the idea is, to before we even get started, to just look at this peak that we envisioning that we're going to reach as a way to continuously aim for growth, continuously aim for the next best thing in our business. So with that, strap on and let's start the climb. The starting point for any climb or any journey is at the base camp. And that could be the trailhead. Maybe you've never actually scaled a mountain and you're like, well, the best I did was like go on a hike. Well, you have to get to a trailhead to get to whatever the summit you're aiming for. So there is the reality check that needs to happen before you get started. And what that means is before you hit the gym, before you pick up that one dumbbell, before you do anything, you have to assess where your level is, fitness level, where your business is, maybe in the market. You have to figure out like, where are you before you even get started? And as the same way how you wouldn't just go to to a mountain trail and start climbing in flip-flops, you hopefully would have a plan. You want to start somewhere, and you want to be able to have some type of a map that guides you. So in business terms, that would be a business plan to have it mapped out. And the takeaway here, I guess, for me would be to just start with what you can handle and then just build from there. Now, for any type of building, may that be a workout plan, may that be a business plan, you have to have SMART goals. You have to have those initial goals that you and milestones that you can, weigh against to see where you're at in your progress. And even if that's maybe squatting your double weight in the gym, or you really want to reach a 6-figure income, who knows? You want to look at your goals as being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Now, in bodybuilding, you might first aim to just start going to the gym. You're like, I'm nowhere to like lifting this barbell over my head, but aiming to just having some type of a consistent workout, that's the starting point. In business, could be breaking down your big goals into something more manageable. And think of this as your maybe mini peaks that you reach along the way to the big summit, or those rep sets that you have to bag in order to get yourself pumped up and motivated. Now, every time you do hit some type of a PR, personally, I like to take the time to celebrate. Like, even if it's nowhere to that the PR that I have or I aim for, I want to celebrate. So taking time to not only celebrate, but also log those celebrations along the way is very important, because then you can go back, and the same way how you would log your milestones and you log your goals, you want to log those celebrations. So when you go back, if you had a career like of 20 years and somebody asks you, so what did you do? Like, what was the best thing that happened, that you've done? You probably can go back like 5 years. But imagine the cool things that you've done maybe 15 years ago. If you did not track any of those, like, how would you remember? I mean, I personally don't have that kind of memory. And then also you have to be able to adjust as you go. You might need to switch up your workout routines. A lot of the times when you're working out consistently, you will inevitably hit a plateau. And you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to switch your routine. And the same way in business, maybe the market might change, or like COVID happened, right? Like, we had to be able to adapt in order to be able to move forward and be successful and achieve whatever or even stay in business, like, period. That was basically the goal, like, stay in business, do not go extinct. Either way, you have to stay flexible. So the first part of this is whether you're maybe strapping on those weighting belts and trying to hit that PR in the gym, or maybe you want to reach this one mountain and take that selfie from the summit. The takeaway here is you have to have a plan. You have to have some initial goals and some milestones. So have those in place. Now, I talked about assembling a dream team. In bodybuilding, whenever you want to go and, maybe bench press something super heavy, you have to have a spotter. And that spotter is there to safely protect you from, maybe crashing under the weight, so that you can push over your max limit, but they're there to just hold that. Now, the spotter is, similarly in business, where you maybe have a strong support system. Maybe you have some kind of like cash flow backup that can really help you take calculated risk without crashing. On the mountaintop, you have Sherpas that will guide you along the way. They will provide support. They will actually help you carry the load. They will also be there to guide you on this climb that probably you've never done before. So in business terms, that could be advisors, that could be mentors, that could be other experienced team members that you have that you can lean on and just gain, knowledge and insight. Now, how do you choose the right people to join you on this adventure? For anything that you're going to do, skill set and strength matters. The same way how in fitness, in the gym, you wouldn't, Patricia, I love you, but probably I wouldn't choose you to be my spotter because I need you to be bigger. So if that weight falls, it doesn't crash the both of us. So in business, the same way, you want someone that has a skill set and a level of skill set that's above you, so you can learn from them and you can lean on them. And that might be someone that you trust, and you have to trust. Trust is important in any business, in any endeavor. I mean, think of a mountain climb that you're climbing corner. You trust them with your life on that 20,000 peak. Like, without trust, you can't do anything. So having also alignment in goals, like, for example, when I train for my next competition, I don't train with someone that doesn't have the same goals that I have. Like, my husband runs marathons. We don't train together. Like, I might once in a while join him on a run, just, for the kick of it. But his training plan is completely different than my training plan. So the same way in business, you want someone who shares your goals. They also share your company values, and they also uphold your brand. Now, like I said, trust and reliability are just as important on that mountain climb as they are in business, because you want team members and people that are invested in your success, that want you to be successful, but they also are there for the long run. And diversity of skills. I mean, in gym, and many times you have so many different type of coaches. Like you have the strength coaches, you have nutritionists, you have maybe wellness coaches, or we call them booty coaches. Like literally, they're there just to help you grow glutes. And maybe that's more for women, but it's true. Like that's what they're doing. It's like this is their focus. So in business, when it comes to that, you have to have a diverse um, pool of people that are part of your team, so you can really tackle any type of challenges that might be, in your way. Like if you think of Sherpas on a mountaintop, they're not the only ones that assist an expedition. You might have actually medical professionals. You might have cooks that actually prep food. You might have, trackers, and might have weather people. Who knows? There's a whole team of people that support just the mountaineer. That's why it's so expensive to actually climb Everest. I thought about it, but then I was like, do I want to climb on into that? So talking about the climb, this is something that actually I gleaned from a guest of mine on my podcast. Events Demystified is my podcast, and I just interviewed them, and they just came from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. So a bit of those parallels, they're like fresh because we just had this conversation, and they're talking about the importance of attitude over altitude. And when they said that, I was like, that really, really clicked, because it's very similar to me with that mind muscle connection that you must have in your training. Like when you're training for whatever competition, in bodybuilding especially, every set that you push for, it has to have some type of mind muscle connection so you can reach your peak performance. So for climbing purposes, for that metaphor, you'll be looking at that summit fever. Like whoever is going on a climbing expedition, they have the summit mentality, and they keep that at the forefront of their focus, because no matter the challenges, they know that with that in mind, they're going to overcome it. So having that summit mentality is very important to be able to keep going the long run, especially when, the going gets tough. And I'm sure we all have been through times when that has happened. Now, how many times have you been around people that are just overly positive and they're a joy to be around, right? Those are the people that they really are able to lift you up when you're going through, a hard time. But also that type of positive mindset, if you can embody that, is what will push you to that one last grueling rep that you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to die. But it's the positivity in your mind and your mindset that is going to get you to get it done. Okay. So you want those type of people around you, especially in your business, because that's the type of power that will support the team morale that's behind you so you can keep going. Now, visualizing success, that's something that I personally practice a lot, especially when I'm working day in and day out for this one day when I'm going to show up on stage and I'm bringing forth this package. And this package is basically the body that I built with the muscles in the right place and the right size, right? So as I'm just going to the gym like every single day and just lifting weights and going through the motions, the visualization of what this person that I see in the future, that's how I keep my eyes on. So in business, you must have this type of visualization process so that you can see where you're going to be 5, 10, whatever, 15 years from now. And that's what climbers do when they go through like hardship, just to, like every single step on a mountain climb, especially if you're going against weather and terrible conditions. It's that summit that they kind of keep the forefront of their focus. That's the summit mentality. That's what you want to see as you're thinking about your business as well. And whether you're, maybe facing a plateau in the gym, which if you've been on a fitness journey, if you've been on a weight loss journey, if you've been on any journey whatsoever, it's inevitable. You're going to hit a plateau of some sort, right? In business, that's going to happen the same way. So you have to be able to adapt and overcome and just stay flexible, have that positive mindset, and just keep going so that you keep that attitude over altitude at the forefront, because that's what's going to amplify your potential. All right. Next thing is another super interesting concept that I was thinking about. Like, when you are going on this climb, especially, you know, a high climb, acclimatization is a very important step of the process. If you're going to reach certain points in your climb where you're constantly going to have to stop and then go back to acclimatize before you can push for the next stage in your climb, right? So in business, what that looks like, you might gradually have to get your attention shifted from one part of your business to something else. Because what happens in business, if there's, like, for example, say you are growing super fast, which is great, like everybody wants to grow fast, right? But unfortunately, if you do that, there is the possibility of reaching this organizational altitude sickness, which can express itself in quality control and team burnout. And I mean, nobody wants that, right? So keeping that in mind is so important. And with that, the importance of pacing and resting and recovering are very, very much part of this process. Like, for example, in bodybuilding, you need rest days in order for your muscles to actually grow. This was a very hard concept for me to grasp, because I just want to, like, go, and never rest, right? But if you don't, like, you're really working against yourself, because you really do not give your muscle time to recover, to rebuild themselves and gain and grow. So the same way in business, in order to absorb growth, especially over, you know, a short period of time, before you can go for the next push, you have to allow yourself to rest and recover. That's what we use in, for example, in fitness and bodybuilding. We call it periodization, where we change our routine every week. Every 8 weeks, I have a different type of workout routine. So, like, if for 8 weeks straight, and I'm going to talk also about another important part of this, which is progressive overload, because the same way how you don't want to, you know, grow from a startup, and you can't really go from like a startup to like an industry leader instantly. It's important to look at your fitness routine as something that is progressively adding up. So we call that progressive overload, because you don't want to just jump from lifting 50 pounds to 300 pounds overnight. And you're not going to be able to, because your muscle do need to grow. They do need to adapt. So progressive overload, rest and recovery, and periodization, those are very important elements to make sure that you do gain the muscle that you want if you're in fitness, right? Or you do reach the summit, or in business, you do end up with reaching your goals. Acclimatization is key, as I mentioned. But what happens when you hit a setback, or when you hit a storm on a mountain? And if you've been on any mountain, a storm is never in the forecast, but it will happen. It will happen so quick that you don't even know where it started from. So with that in mind, what that looks like, for example, in fitness, for me, beginning of the year, I actually pulled a tendon in my right shoulder, and it took me 8 months, not 8 days, not 8 weeks, 8 months to recover from. And I couldn't just stop working out and just be like waiting around, right? I had to adjust, adapt, and just be flexible and have patience with my body to actually recover. So what that looks like in business, sometimes, you know, you're going through a hard patch, and it's unexpected, it's disruptive, and it could really, you know, turn everything upside down. I'm sure you probably experienced that with the job loss. Maybe the market has turned, COVID happened again, right? Where everything changed and you had to adapt quickly. I mean, I felt like I pivoted like 100 times during that time, and just trying to stay relevant and alive. And the same way could happen if a team member leaves, right? I had that happen to me twice, and it was really hard to recover from, because I had all these processes in place, and then like having to start all over again. It's like, oh, so hard. So in order to bounce back and keep climbing towards your goal, you have to allow time for rehab and recovery. Now, in bodybuilding, proper rehab can be, you know, adjusting my workout schedule so that I can still push weights with this one hand, but not overdo it. And then, of course, 8 months into recovery on this side, I pull a left, a muscle in my hamstring, and I'm like, because I was constantly probably like over compensating with my other side. So there's always going to be some type of a setback, but I will look at those setbacks as an opportunity for learning, but also setbacks, there are setups for comebacks. The same way how for a lot of us, business changed completely after COVID. And I look at it at that, setback that really turned us into a completely different type of comeback. So when you're on a mountain climb and, you've done your recovery, you've done a rehab, but you also have to have some type of contingency planning. And you don't have to talk to event planners because they probably have plan C, D, E, F, all the way to C. That's just part of who we are, right? But in business, the same way, you have to have that kind of contingency planning so that you can navigate some of the rough patches. And going back to say, my business is very seasonal. So I know that in order for me to make it through the summer, I have to have enough cash flow to carry me through that. And then busy season hits again. So it's a continuous cycle and continuously being able to adapt to that. And with that, you have the need for mental resilience. That's when mental fitness comes into place, because when you're pushing that one last grueling set, and when you're on that mountaintop and there's just one harsh condition over another harsh condition just playing against you, or maybe you're facing, job loss or business challenges, having the mental toughness to carry you through is what's going to help you bounce back and just keep on going, keep on climbing. So before we get to the final peak, what we're going to do, because I'm close to the end, but I wanted to actually implement a little bit of relaxation, because we are on the well-being wheel. And I promise you, I'm not going to make you do push-ups or burpees. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to stand up, put your things to the side, and we're going to do just a bit of warm-up. Who doesn't want to have toned arms? We're going to focus on that. Let's see if I can put this somewhere. All right. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. Okay, so what we're going to do, and try to have a distance of an arm apart between all of you, so that you don't smack yourself into the face. So we're just going to do small motions. Just think of it like dime size in one direction. So if you go backwards, because I usually start backwards with everything, go that way. Do that for 8 counts. And then let's go back to forward for 8 counts. Do that. All right. And then we're going to put our hands in the front. Okay. And then we're going to go one hand over the other. Just keep one stable and just go with, say, if you started with your right hand, go with that and do that for 10 counts. And when we're done, we're going to switch that and try to put tension in your muscles as you do that mind-muscle connection, right? Like you're imagining that your muscle is not only pulling tension, but it's growing as it's doing that. Okay. And now we're just going to do some crisscrosses. Again, do it with tension in your arm. Don't be around. Let's try to put intentionality right behind it. Okay, good. That's that. Now we're going to bend from the knees, and we're going to push our arms backwards, and we're just going to do pulses. And again, think of your triceps as they're pulsating and they're growing. Good. You feeling that? I love it. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing, but instead of pulsating, we're just going to feel like we're pulling something heavy, and just still the same position, but pull with your arms, like you're pulling something heavy and you're engaging those muscles. Okay, you should feel that especially in your back muscles. Good. All right, and then the last move is we got to take those biceps. Let's make them work, right? So you're going to have your arms here. You're going to pull, push, and go forward. Okay, so this forward. Yep. And just put strength behind it. All right. Are we all sweaty? I feel like it's so warm here. Okay, good. All right. Now, just relax your shoulders a little bit. Let go of all that tension in your back. When I get stressed, like a lot of the tension, it's in my neck muscles. So just doing a bit of stretches. So what I do with those hands exercises, I do it in between meetings. I do it in between Zoom meetings, in between any type of like stand up from your desk. If you've been at your desk for 8 hours, stand up for 2 minutes and do just something to elevate your blood, heart rate. So I feel like I'm ready to go next. Now we have one more chapter, so we can take our seat back. And next time I promise that I will hit leg day, because friends don't let friends skip leg day. So we'll do that next. Okay, so now that you've done this, it's almost like take this like 100 times bigger and better in the feeling of accomplishment, in the endorphin level, in the dopamine hit that you're getting from just engaging your body, engaging your mind, and just imagine that you're now on top of that summit that you so look forward to reach. Or maybe you just hit that one PR in the gym that you were working so hard towards. And it's funny because I have a story where I was leg pressing what I thought it was like below 500 for the longest time. And I really wanted to reach past 500, but it's really hard to, leg press like close to 500. So until somebody came to me and they're like, wow, that's a lot of weight. Like how much weight is there? I'm like, I think it's 495 and I'm really trying to go to 500. So they're like trying to do the math. So they're counting the plates and they're like, did you count the machine plate? I'm like, yeah, like that's like what, 35 pounds? They're like, no, it's 120 pounds. So I was literally leg pressing way past, 500, but I didn't realize. So in my mind, I'm still working so hard to hit that one PR. So when they said that, I'm like, this anymore. It's just so funny because I finally reached that goal. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm past that 500. Now I can work towards, 575, whatever. So that's the feeling of the accomplishment that you get when you maybe hit that one significant summit, or maybe you achieve that one major business deal, or you close down one client that you've been working so hard for, right? It's accelerating because it's testament to your hard work. It's testament to the fact that you are dedicated and you are consistent, and also you had an amazing team around you, right? But here's the thing: that feeling of accomplishment isn't just a one-time high. It's something that is so addictive that you want to take it as the fuel that will drive you into your next challenge. You want to use that as something that it's an opportunity for continuous growth, so that now that you've tasted success, now that you are able to say, I've got this, you can aim higher. You can see the next peak over, because that's one question that I asked my guest on the podcast. So I was like, what was the feeling when you're on top of 𝐲𝐿Imajaro̥ and you're just looking around? You're like, wow, I've done this. They're like, I was looking at the next mountain that was higher and I wanted that one, right? So it's that opportunity to say, I've reached this, I backed this one goal, and now I want to go there. For me, my first bodybuilding show, when I was on that stage, I could have said, okay, check, I've got my awards, I got my swords. Literally, they give you swords, like you can fight monsters. And I'm like, I'm good. No, my next goal was like, what is the package that I can bring next time? If I allow myself time to grow and go in that direction, what's that going to look like, right? So I'm already aiming for the next thing. What's the next thing? So in closing, just to recap our journey, as we, talked about the importance of applying mental and physical fitness to all of the challenges that we, have to overcome in business, in our everyday life. We first kicked off at base camp, and that's where it's important to be setting those crucial initial goals. Then we assembled our dream team, which is basically our spotters and our Sherpas. Then we looked at attitude over altitude as a way to keep that positive mindset, which is everything. Then we went to acclimatization and we talked about how important it is to pace ourselves for growth, because we can't just like go, 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 go. We have to allow time to re team up, or just be able to move forward from there at a pace that we can sustain. Then we're also looked at weathering the storm, which has taught us that obstacles and setbacks are really opportunities for comebacks. And then reaching that final peak is where we tasted that sweet taste of accomplishment. But we also remembered all the lessons that we have, learned in the process. And speaking of the process, which is going to drive us towards the next climb, that one mountain, the next mountain is there, and it's all about just never settling and aiming for continuous growth. So what has been the common thread? I hope that the one takeaway that you take from all of this is that mental and physical fitness are your secret sauce for powering through, whether you're in the gym, whether you're climbing a mountain, or you're building a business from the get-go, or you're just in the boardroom. So with that being said, life is too short to stand still. So don't just stand here, start standing. And I think I went over time for 2 minutes, so sorry about that. Thank you everyone for coming. If you have questions, connect with me. There is a card on those chairs. That's where you can find the podcast, and you can find me on LinkedIn, and those on my website as well, on those the QR codes that are listed there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.